Alright, Shalom, giving all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Makakodash. Double honors to the apostles of GreatMillStone that rule impeccably well. And Shalom to the Arkim that's pushing his truth and sincerity across the four winds, man. Right, I just want to get into a video, and it's going to be focused on a video I've come across on the Megan Kelly Today YouTube channel, which has a story here that follows this woman, right, who was basically lied to by her mother, you know, regarding her heritage. What she basically found out is that her granddad was a so-called black man, a so-called African American, as they would say in today's times, right? A so-called African American. And, you know, in the story, basically what you're going to find out is that her mother hid that information from her, right? And from everyone else who she came into contact with, including her husband that she ended up being with, man. Right? So even her husband didn't know that she was a so-called mixed race woman. Right? But when you see pictures of her, as you can see here in the background, she could pass for an Edomite woman, man. Right? She doesn't really have any features of a so-called black woman. Sometimes you will get children that come out that have a black father and a white mother, and they will come out looking like the father. They will come out, you know, with a certain amount of melanin, where you can tell straight away that, you know, they have you know, a black father, a so-called black father. But in this instance, with this lady here, that didn't really come out, man. And it can happen either way. You can end up coming out, you know, with your mom's complexion or your father's complexion, or your mom's features or your father's features, man. Which goes on to further prove the point that you cannot judge an Israelite, you know, by the tone of his skin color, man. You just can't do that. Right? Because this is proof right here. You look at this woman, you would have never thought that her grandfather was, her father, Salakia, was a so-called black man. Meaning that she could be a Judite. And look how she looks, man. You know? And if she was to engage in a particular camp or camps out there that don't accept, you know, this doctrine, which is a part of the scriptures, you know, they'll tell her to walk down the street, man. Not because she's a woman and that her, you know, that her man should teach her the truth. Not for that reason, but for the reason that she looks like an Edomite woman, man. So you got camps out there that are not spiritual. They're just purely carnal, man. And they're not moving with the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Because if they was moving with the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, they would know that our people were scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And because of this, we're going to have our people looking like all the people where we were scattered, man. Because what happens, our men, the men of Israel, will lay down with the heathen women. And it's something we've done from day one, man. You know? We've always dealt with the other nations' women, man. And we're going to show you that in the scriptures too. Now, I'll just play a few more excerpts from this video so you can get a gist, you know, a deeper gist of the story.
Casa could not have predicted what she would discover when she decided to dig into her mother's mysterious past. Watch.
This is my mom and dad. And as far as I know, my father went to his grave never knowing my mom's secret. My parents met during World War II. My mom was an absolutely stunningly beautiful woman. My dad, he had a great sense of humor. He served in the Pacific. He was very proud of that.
In 1944, after the war, Harold Kalina married Elvira Frederick. They settled in a working-class neighborhood.
And you look at this woman, man, which is basically a so-called black woman, right? She was basically embarrassed to be a so-called black woman, man. She didn't want to claim onto that heritage, especially in those days, man. Right? Because in those days, look, man, it wasn't a cool thing to be a so-called black woman or a so-called black man, right? It just wasn't cool, right? For obvious reasons, man. Now she wanted to try and escape the curses by what? Yoking on to this so-called white man, right? And engaging in that white privilege, man. That's what she wanted, man. So she saw what? She saw the God of the earth, man, right? Who is the so-called white man, who were the Edomites, man. And she said, look, man, I don't want to be affiliated. I don't want to be synonymous with these so-called black people, man, that are around me in my family. I'm going to go and I'm going to yoke myself onto the so-called white man, and I'm going to live a life as a so-called white woman, man. That was more better for her, man. You know? But guaranteed she still caught hell, man, because she's an Israelite. Right? And the scriptures say that the curses will pursue you, man. So whatever she tried to do, the curses were always going to catch up with her anyway, man. And those curses can catch up to you in many shapes and forms. It doesn't matter how you look. There's brothers in this truth that are Israelites, right? That don't look like Israelites, but are Israelites, and they're going to catch hell same way. You might have a little bit of white privilege if you have so-called, a lack of melanin in your skin. There might be certain things in society that you might find that is a little bit easy for you because of that appearance, and because people are not spiritual, they can't perceive what you are, right? So you might find certain things a bit easier, but for the most part, those curses will pursue you. You will still catch hell like any other Israelite, man, as long as you are from the stock of the 12 tribes of Israel, man. You can't escape the curses. Doesn't matter how you look, you know?
In Parma, Ohio. In 1946, their daughter Gail was born. Throughout her childhood, Gail says her mother mystified her in some ways.
She was very meticulous about her makeup. She would wear a light foundation makeup to bed at night, which I thought was a little strange. She would never go out in the sun unless she had a wide brim hat. She would cover her hands with gloves. Really didn't like to be in the sun.
But Gail says the big...
Hey, so she went as far as wearing makeup to bed and, wearing gloves when it was actually summer, right? And avoiding the sun altogether because she didn't want to tan. Because what happens when you have melanin? When you have melanin in your skin and you go out in the hot sun, you get darker, right? You will get darker. You will naturally get darker as a highly pigmented individual. You will get darker, man. And she knew that, so that's why she avoided going out in the sun, and that's why she wore gloves. So her skin didn't tan as easy, man. Right? So that just shows you like the lengths that our people will go to be anything but themselves, man. Our people will be anything but themselves, man. Anything but the Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, man. Right? They want to be the so-called white man. They want to be into all these other philosophies. They want to be into Islam. But they don't want to cling on to their own heritage, man.
The biggest mystery was her mother's selective memory when talking about her own father, Azimar Frederick.
I said, Mom, when was he born? When did he die? Oh, I don't know. I can't remember.
Growing up, Gail never saw one photo of her grandfather. Finally, in 1995, when she was 48, she decided to search for his identity, combing through microfilm.
At first, I couldn't find him. Then I put in the 1900 Louisiana census records, and suddenly I see the name Azimar Frederick. There are all these Fredericks in the same household. Then I noticed something else very curious. Next to all their names is the letter B. So I go to the head of that column to see what it stands for, and it says race. So that B, does that mean black?
Gail wanted to confront her mother, but first she reached out to the state of Louisiana, requesting her mother's birth certificate.
I pretended I was my mother and that I had lost my birth certificate. I opened that birth certificate, and there in parentheses were 3 letters, COL. So I wrote to the state again and said, my birth certificate said COL. Would you please explain to me what that means? They sent me a very official letter back, and they said, COL is for colored. I just was speechless. I didn't know if my mother knew, but I'm thinking, how could she not know this? And why has she never said anything to me?
We're joined now by...
Hey, man, so you can see, the due diligence this woman, went to find out, the information regarding her heritage, man. And that's something our people, I'm talking to you Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, are not even doing, I mean, it goes through the spirit, to know if you're an Israelite or not. But at the same time, our people are not even concerned to try and find out, this kind of information, man. And it just shows you the state and the current affairs of our people as a nation, man. We're completely lost. We're completely lost as a people, man. But, regarding this topic, let's get into the scriptures, man. This is Genesis chapter 6, and I'll start from verse 2. And it says that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, right? Which means the daughters of the other nations outside of the Israelites, man. Because we weren't called Israelites at that particular time, but through the Spirit, we were always Israelites. We were always the children of God, man, right? Because you had 3 varieties of man upon the earth at that time. You had, the children of the wicked, the children of God, and I believe the children of men, right? And so that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose, man. So even at this time, we were intermingling with the other nations' women, man. And that's something that's happened throughout the years and throughout the generations, man, right? Because that's just how Jake is. Jake is as a people, we lack a variety of women. But where we went wrong, right, is in those times, we started to marry on to those women and follow them, regarding their cultures, man, and their gods, which was us going off, man. And the same thing happened with our King Solomon, right? Because you can have the women of the other nations, man, but you gotta have them as concubines, man. You can't have them as your main woman. You can't have them as a wife, so to speak, man, right? Because the Lord has given us our own women, the Israelite women, man. All the tribes from all the tribes from you Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, you can all deal with each other, but pretty much as wives, But pretty much that's where it stops, man. We ain't supposed to marry onto the other nations, marry no Moabite women, or no Edomite women, man. They're purely for the use of being concubines, man, right? But it just shows you even from this day, hey, you got World War in the World Wars as well, man. You had Jake fighting in the World Wars. Jake will get down with women of the other nations, man. Women will get raped in war, man. A lot of Jake will get involved in that and leave seed abroad, man. Even back in slavery, right? You'll have the slave master's wife, sleep with the so-called black men, and what, bear children, man. And even after slavery, you had certain women that would actually, have relationships, even though they would get a lot of the stick from doing that, they would have relationships with so-called black men, right? Because the other nations, the women of the other nations, they desire, you Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, man, right? They desire the Israelite man, because the Israelite man is really the epitome of what a real man is, even in a state of being enslaved, man. And that just shows you the power of our people and the power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, man. Right? Now this is Daniel chapter 9 and verse 8. Because it's important to remember that, as a result of all this mixing, what you're going to have a confusion of faces, man. And I'll start from verse 7. And it says here, Daniel chapter 9 and verse 7, O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of faces. As at this day to the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and unto all Israel that are near and that are far off, man. So look, man, it's prophesied that there was going to be a confusion of faces, man. Meaning that not all Israelites were all going to be the same complexion. Not all Israelites were going to look like your common or standard Israelite citizen, man. We were going to have different facial features. We going to have different complexions. Why? Because we were enslaved by a multitude of different nations throughout the centuries, man. Right? There was a lot of raping going down. There's a lot of wheat. There's a lot of tears, man. Right? There's a whole load of confusion. That's why when the angels of Yahweh Shem Yahushai come back, they're gonna sift Israel through the spirit, man. Right? They ain't gonna look at your facial appearance, man, or how wide your nose is, or how thick your lips are. Right? That's not how it's gonna be, man. It's gonna be purely spiritual. Right? Now it says here, right. O Lord, to us belong a confusion of face, to our kings, to our princes, and to our fathers, because we have sinned against thee, man. So that was going to go even to the kings, the princes, and the fathers, man. Right? We were all going to be affected by this particular curse, man, of the confusion of faces, man. Right? And that's because we couldn't keep the law, statutes, and commandments that Yahweh Shem Yahushai had bestowed upon us. Right? So, hey, man, our people are a cursed people. And as a cursed people, you also can tell we are the real people. Because these curses, it's spoken of in the Bible, they only match our people, man. You know? Now, this is Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 11. And after this, I'll close up. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again, the second time, to recover the remnant of his people. Now, let's see where Yahweh Shem Yahushai is going to recover the remnant of his people, man. Right? Which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Paphros, and from Cush, and of Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea, man. So basically throughout the four corners of the earth, the Lord is going to recover Israelites, man. Right? Because we are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, among and mingled in between all nations, man. Right? So you can't tell me you ain't gonna get Indian-looking Israelites out there, man. If they're scattered in the land of Elam, you can't tell me you ain't gonna have some Hamites, right? Some Israelites that look like Hamites, man. Right? You're gonna have Israelites that look like all of these nations, Egyptians, right? All of these nations here, Syrians, man. You know, you're gonna have. Hey, it's far out there, man. You gotta consider everything. You gotta be spiritual, man. Because all of these things that are spoken of in the scriptures, you can't just forget about these scriptures, man. Right? You gotta address these scriptures. All you guys that don't believe that you can get an Israelite that looks like a so-called white man, then address these scriptures, man, and use common sense. You know? Anyway, with that, you know, I pray this lesson was edifying, and you know, shalom.